Hey, Feminist Frequency listeners, we would love you to join our podcast community on Patreon. That's patreon.com/femfreak.
I would like to take this opportunity to say goodbye to all of the supporters we're going to lose in this episode as Anita comes out as an Iron Man hater. You know, I do want to talk about Hawkeye.
So give me a break. You like Iron Man? Come on.
I'm just saying.
He's such an arrogant piece of shit. Welcome to Feminist Frequency Radio. This is episode 75, and I'm your host, Anita Sarkeesian. And I'm joined, as always, by two women who are briefly acknowledged in a little throwaway scene about girl power and then never seen from again. I've got Carolyn Pettit.
Hey, hey.
And Ebony Adams.
It's always my role in films.
This is the show that asks you to be critical of the media you love, or alternatively, we're the feminist killjoys coming for your media, depending on your perspective. Today we're going to be talking about Avengers Endgame, the film that sets out to bring all the interwoven story threads of the Marvel Cinematic Universe to a satisfying close. After that, we'll finish the show by each sharing a little something in What's Your FREQ-Out? Let's get to it. Hello.
Hey.
Anita, you missed the episode where Carol and I talked about Shazam. How sad are you?
I know. I am as sad as I would be if
yeah, hurry up, make up something.
I got nothing. All I could think about was ice cream, but I like ice cream. So then I was like, what about having all the ice cream in the world? Would not make me sad.
Yeah.
It didn't work. I'm not as witty. I'm not as fast on my toes as you are, Ebony.
Yeah. Missing something. You miss something that you don't care about at all. Gosh, that's got to be rough.
Well, lock it away for right now. Because you didn't miss this. You just saw Endgame today.
I did. I went to a 9:45 a.m. screening, which, as our listeners know, I often go to early morning screenings to like shove in whatever movie it is that we need to talk about.
Dedication, listeners.
And the theater had more than two other people in it.
Wow.
Did you know either
of them?
This movie
9:45, y'all. People, Monday morning, 9:45. People were hopped to see Avengers.
This movie's just raking in the cash, obviously.
I mean, it really is. All right. Well, before we get into all of that nonsense, let's do some pop culture news, and then we will spend the rest of the time diving into this movie that I've already forgotten because it was so boring. What? Spoilers?
Well, all right. So first of all, starting with some very sad news. So John Singleton, the director of films such as Poetic Justice, Higher Learning, and the film he's best known for, Boys in the Hood, is being taken off of life support after suffering a devastating stroke last week. And it's hard for me to articulate like how profound the experience of watching Boys in the Hood was for me as like a young white person who lived in the greater Los Angeles area and who internalized from like the local news and stuff, a lot of just, like a very racist, very fear oriented notion of like South Central LA and like the black, like the predominantly black neighborhoods. And, that's like one of the films that I actually, can actually credit with saying like this film kind of like challenged my perspective and broadened my perspective in a way that I can like legitimately identify. And aside from that, it's just a tremendous film. So he only 51. So really a tragic loss to.
Yeah, I mean, Boys in the Hood is one of those films that even more so than like the content of the movie, but the mere fact of its development and assured execution by a 23-year-old. I mean, remember, John Singleton was 23 when that movie came out. And I remember thinking, there's a tendency to sort of cynically suggest that representation is not as easy as simply seeing someone do something and thinking, I can do that. But that is absolutely what happened when I saw Boys in the Hood and learned who made it. I thought, this young dude, this young brother made this film, and it is a critical and commercial triumph. And I just thought, yeah, there's maybe a space for me in the media that I hadn't anticipated. I mean, I just had no touchstones for, directors before really that point, who were not, of the old white guy mold. So yeah, just a huge loss for people. 51. I mean, that's no kind of age.
And no, it's tragic. In other, news, this is more infuriating than tear jerking. So I was like so infuriated by this. So I don't care about football. I don't care about football. But the San Francisco 49ers, the same team that Colin Kaepernick couldn't remain on because his kneeling in protest of police brutality was deemed too controversial. That same team just drafted a player named Nick Bosa, who is very promising in terms of his athletic prowess, but who has a history of tweeting racist things and more often than that of liking racist and white nationalist tweets and Instagram posts. And like as the draft was happening, like on ESPN, their coverage of the draft, like there was, I mean, at least based on the tweets that I was seeing in my timeline, there was basically like no engagement whatsoever with like that aspect of Nick Bosa and the weird, like, it's not even hypocrisy. It's the blatant like racism and white supremacy of Colin Kaepernick protests police brutality, that creates this media furor, and obviously he becomes this pariah and can't find work anymore. But there's no problem whatsoever hiring this guy who has liked some like really reprehensible and awful, Instagram posts and tweets that are just like so blatantly just racist and like really dehumanizing to Black people. It's, it's just, oh God. And it's like, I mean, I hate to, this is largely irrelevant, obviously, but it's like, representing a city like San Francisco, like, doesn't the city of San Francisco, I mean, not that San Francisco is such a great city, but, we have an image at least of being somewhat progressive, at least certainly when it comes to like LGBT, Q issues, if nothing else. And like, I just... like it, I don't know. It just makes me sick, the thought of this guy being a quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers.
Yeah, and it's such a deliberate choice and deliberate slap in the face. And the implication, the fundamental belief that this white dude can subscribe to these white supremacist beliefs, and that somehow that doesn't affect who he is as a person. He's still worthy of being given a chance. But that Colin Kaepernick, the sort of activism that he engaged in, was distracting. And, by extension, any sort of vocal, social justice work, is a distraction for the presumed white community and white audience and white fan base of the NFL. It's so galling, but it's so telling about who's allowed to sort of make certain decisions and be visible in certain ways. But fuck the 49ers. Fuck Nick Bosa too.
Yeah, and there was like a softball question lobbed at him at a press conference about that history, and all he said, was, the sort of hollow line, talking point line of, well, I may have made some mistakes in the past. I'm just looking to learn from that and move on. And that's it. Like, that's all he has to say. And they're like, oh, okay, mm-hmm. Okay. Oh, fuck off.
Yeah, and fuck y'all's president, too, for congratulating him.
Yes, the president. No mention of the number one draft
Who's
pick
black?
Who was, Black athlete, but this number two athlete. Hey, congratulations, Nick Bosa. Oh, God.
Are you serious?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Like, I knew that. Wait, the president congratulated him, but nobody else?
The number two. And and very explicitly was like,
shut up.
Also, I think this is...
Man, he's not even pretending.
No.
Not that he ever has. I don't know why I'm surprised.
Finally, this my third story, the positive-ish news story for this week. It's hard to take pleasure from much of anything that happens to Notch, the creator of Minecraft, given that he still has like, the $2.5 billion that he sold Minecraft for in 2014. But Microsoft has publicly said that Notch won't be part of the 10-year anniversary plans for the game because of his comments and opinions. They released in a statement via spokesperson, Microsoft said, Notch's comments and opinions do not reflect those of Microsoft or Mojang and are not representative of Minecraft. So, yay, Notch doesn't get to be part of the Minecraft 10th anniversary official celebrations, I guess. I mean, slim pickings, I know, but that's the best I could do. Yeah. That's the best I could find.
I'll take it.
I mean, I'll take it. I wonder what, if Notch had turned into a piece of shit Gamergator while still owning Minecraft, what that would look like or mean for that community. But he doesn't. Anyways, let's move on, I guess. Nice try with the positive news.
Thanks. I tried.
Hey, listeners, we love that you're tuning into our show where we deliver intersectional feminist analysis of pop culture every single week. You can help us keep bringing this sharp, honest, and sometimes funny analysis to you by joining our podcast community on Patreon. In exchange for your dollars, we've got some perks like early access, weekly bonus episodes, AMAs, and an amazing community that hangs out on our private Discord server. So please consider joining us at patreon.com/femfreak.
All right, so starting with the first Iron Man way back in 2008, there have been a whopping 21 films in the Marvel Cinematic Universe prior to Avengers Endgame. As its title suggests, this film sets out to not only resolve the cliffhanger ending of Avengers Infinity War, but also to bring many ongoing character arcs and plot points to a satisfying conclusion. Especially given the massive success and cultural impact of these films, there's a whole lot to talk about here beyond just whether it succeeds or fails as an entertaining superhero movie. Before we get started, I'm just going to throw out our spoiler alert. Spoiler alert! Just because I don't want us to, we're going to talk about all kinds of things in this, but there will definitely be spoilers. So if you haven't seen it yet, take a quick pause, come back to us in a couple days.
You should have gone to the movies at 9:45 a.m.
Yeah, man, you should have. We told you we were going to talk about this. Anyways, come back to us when you've seen the movie, or if you don't care about spoilers, continue listening.
Before we start digging into the issues with this film, of which there are none, this is a perfect film. No, this film has so many issues. But before we get into that, I guess I do just want to say, on the level of that kind of meeting that requirement or that goal of being a somewhat satisfying conclusion to this like extremely bloated cinematic saga that Disney and Marvel have churned out over the past 11, 12 years. I did feel like it worked fairly well on that level. Like I did come away from the film satisfied in terms of how story threads were resolved and like the fates of some characters and things like that. That's to say nothing of other issues that I want us to get into in a minute.
Like fat shaming? Is that one of the issues?
Well, yes, fat shaming.
Just kidding.
But
Ebony, do you agree with Carolyn's statement?
I do. I'm sitting here thinking about so I saw the film yesterday, and I saw it with friend of the pod Kronk, who weeped copiously. I managed to hold it together simply because I was the driver and didn't want us to get in a wreck on the way home. I found it very emotionally satisfying. At the same time that I was like, things would occasionally happen in the film where I thought, holy, like you had an opportunity here to go right and you took a hard left and you really, are kind of souring my experience in this moment. And yeah, the fat shaming absolutely is one of those things. But as a whole, I appreciated this film, and I want to be very clear about what I mean. I appreciated that by and large, we got the sort of emotionally emotional closure to the story as a whole, whether, you like the individual fates of individual characters. Very much as a whole, I think the film succeeds in closing things off and, sort of allowing us to have a kind of natural endpoint, knowing that we're still going to be getting films from, Black Panther, we're still going to be getting Spider-Man movies, etc. Nevertheless, sort of saying, okay, this chapter is now over. And I really appreciated the way the filmmakers offered a very sedate pace for the film. Like we could have gone immediately into what probably would have been a very rousing, like, kick-ass battle scene, guns, just like street fighting, whatever. We could have started there. And yeah, that would have been satisfying at one level, but it would have felt inauthentic to me, given what happens at the end of Infinity War. And so in a way, and I hate to say this about the Russos, because fuck y'all, really, for thinking you put a gay character in this film and you did something when that shit it could not be more background. But I do think it was a brave choice in a way to offer us a kind of very pensive, thoughtful ending to what has been a shoot 'em up, knockout, drag out, like big tentpole movie spectacle.
Yeah, I agree. One thing I do appreciate about this film, the reason it's 3 hours long, or, part of the reason is that it takes a considerable amount of time with characters just kind of developing emotions and things like that. And, it could have been a shorter film if it were a more kind of just relentless gung-ho like action film. But I actually appreciated that it wasn't that, and that of course it has the ridiculously long, huge battle scenes and whatnot. But I was thankful for the moments of character focus and development throughout, the kind of focus on grief that characters are experience in the wake of the Thanos snap. Yeah.
I don't like watching movies and having no time to reflect on it before I have to talk about it, because
sure.
I literally watched it like 3 hours ago. And I've already forgotten everything. It did not stick with me at all, and I didn't like it. And I don't know how I'll feel tomorrow or in 3 days or whatever if it does kind of pop back in. I think I was thinking, like, I'm listening to you talk and I'm like, yeah, you're right. Like it does. It's not all action. It's like there's kind of one big action sequence, right, for the most part, which is fine. Like, I'm totally fine with that. Although the big action sequence bored me to tears. I felt like if I wanted that, I would have just gone and rewatched Lord of the Rings.
Never a bad idea.
And then I also couldn't help but think about how, like, I couldn't stop thinking about The Leftovers. And I know it's not fair to like a show that had 3 seasons that literally talked about this exact thing over 3 seasons, and like the grief and the loss that comes with like your loved ones disappearing all of a sudden. But like, I don't know. I just sat there being like, other movies did all of these things better, which might not be fair. Sorry, whatever. Even Infinity War, I remember thinking like I was really surprised at how well it handled all of the different pieces and all of the different things it was trying to do, right? Like that was the first event.
Wait, I don't remember that being your reaction to Infinity War. Can we go to the tape?
It was. I remember specifically, it's not that I loved the movie, but I was surprised that it worked because it kept the core of each of those characters alive in some ways, in a way that's really surprising for a movie with that big of a cast. And I think that as big of a cast of characters that we already know and are invested in. And I don't think that this one did that as well, but I also think that it's trying to take the next step of like, what is grief doing to all of these characters and how is it making them react? And the choices that they're making moving forward on how to deal with their current situation. Like, you talk about it giving space, emotional space for development or relationships, but all I saw was fucking Hawkeye being annoying because I fucking hate Hawkeye, and being sad and wow whatever. And then Tony Stark is like the star of the movie. Like it's all about, I felt like it was very centered around him and Hawkeye, which are the 2 characters I hate the most in this whole franchise. So that also I left being like, okay, cool. Like, you're not getting redeemed, dude. You're still a piece of shit, and you always have been. And I don't care if you had PTSD in fucking your third movie or whatever. Like, it just, I didn't like it. Okay.
I would like to take this opportunity to say goodbye to all of the supporters we're going to lose in this episode as Anita comes out as an Iron Man hater. You know, I do want to talk about Hawkeye.
So give me a break. You like Iron Man? Come on.
I'm just saying.
He's such an arrogant piece of shit.
The franchise starts with Iron Man. It's fitting, whether you love Iron Man or not. It seems at least, you know, thematically fitting that it wraps up and that he's given so much space.
I can understand why they did what they did. It doesn't mean I had to like it.
No, it does mean that you have to like it, Anita. It means you have to love it or your fandom card is revoked.
It just, whatever, take it away. I don't care.
I do want to talk about, so I didn't watch The Leftovers, but I'm interested in what you were saying about how over the course of, you said 3 seasons, that show, you know, really was able to deal with the implications, you know, of how people live and survive or fail to after this horrific, you know, absolutely incomprehensible event, right? And you're right. In the course of 3 hours, there's no way that we could get that. Although I do think the film does, as much as it is able, hint at, you know, the trauma there, you know, so we have Cap leading that support group. We have Ant-Man coming back to his neighborhood. And remember, this is 5 years later at this point, and the neighborhood is still a wreck, right? So these are not people who have wanted to move on, who are able to move. So in whatever way they can, they're trying to hint at the depth and the intensity of what these people are dealing with. What's going on with Hawkeye really, I think, needs to be unpacked, because Hawkeye, like, the film starts with him, right? And, you know, his shock and horror and the trauma, the catastrophe that he's dealing with of losing his entire family, right? And his response to it is become this like racist vigilante, you know?
So first of all, he has it real rough. I did the math on this, right? Every individual person has like a 50-50 chance of being snapped. He lost like the 3 members of his family that were there. That's a 1 in 8 chance. So wow.
Right.
Like,
and so here's the thing,
luck.
like, as much as I hated him, you know, the notion that like he's gonna go take out the cartels, he's gonna go take out the Yakuza, whatever, right? I kind of liked the way that it's not that he became a villain, but in the face of all that grief, I can see someone who has, you know, had a sort of unwavering moral compass no longer being able to access that at all.
I have to say, like, the whole, I'm sure it has some basis in the comics, but the whole sword fighting in the rain scene, like, I honestly thought the whole time that what we were witnessing for some reason was the filming of a martial arts film, and that at some point, like, a director would call cut, and that then we see, like, oh, Black Widow's there on the set because she's, like, looking for somebody, because it just felt so kind of stylized as a like martial arts, like, sword fight scene, that even within the universe of Avengers, like, it took me out of the moment, because I didn't believe that this is something that would just organically happen. Like, the dialogue was so heightened, and, you know, I
thought it
ridiculous.
was Marvel saying, listen, we're trying to gauge audience reaction and interest in a possible Hawkeye film. How do you like this? If there's a lot of, you know, like, we paid the money for this property. If people can, you know, if they can demonstrate some interest in this character, look what we can do. And I would not be averse to it. You know, I have not cared about Hawkeye, but I just thought it was so interesting that, like, I appreciated the way that grief made him just go, like, it totally exceed the bounds of rational behavior, because I think it would, you know, whether it makes you travel to, you know, other countries and, you know, violently dispatch non-white peoples. Now that's another story, but
it's funny that you say that about gauging interest in a Hawkeye movie, because during the scene where he and Black Widow are, on the sacrificial cliff to get the soul stone, I was convinced that he was going to be the one to die. And the reason why is, like, in my head, I was like, nobody gives a fuck about Hawkeye. Nobody gives a fuck about Jeremy Renner in these movies. But a lot of people like Black Widow and Scarlett Johansson. She's a much bigger, more bankable star. I've heard that there's a Black Widow movie in the works. Clearly Hawkeye is going to be the one who dies here. And then that wound up not being the case. So I was, like, legitimately surprised.
But I think that Scarlett Johansson wanted to be written out.
I think so too, but I think I'm of two minds here, because I think, if people still demonstrated enough interest in getting a Black Widow movie, they absolutely haven't written themselves into a corner. At the end of this film, we see Star-Lord determined to find a way to bring Gamora back, right? And we know there's going to be another Guardians of the Galaxy film. We know she's going to be in it. And so clearly there's going to be some sort of hand-wavy explanation to bring people back. So if necessary, Black Widow's coming back. Gamora's coming back.
I hope not. I hate that character.
Who? Gamora? Black Widow?
Black Widow.
Oh. Anita, can I ask you this? What has been your overall impression of the MCU? Like, are there characters or films that you were like, you know what? I like this. I straight up loved it. Whether it was fine cinema or not, I loved it.
I loved the first Thor movie, and I loved the 2 Guardians of the Galaxy movies. And I overall enjoyed Captain Marvel. And the other ones are different ranges, but they didn't stick out as things that I would ever watch again. Some of them I hated, and some of them I thought were fine.
Okay, so we're gonna have a problem because you didn't love Black Panther.
Oh, fuck! I love Black Panther.
Nope, too late. I'm sending a squad to your house right now.
I watched Black Panther 5 times, okay? Like, let's be real. That was probably my favorite one. I can't believe I forgot that. Jesus Christ. I was thinking about humor and how humor was used, and how, like, I did not find this movie funny. And I didn't find any of the jokes funny. And I think I laughed twice, and both of those times were with Hulk. Like, I loved what they did with Hulk and Banner. That, like, everything they did with him, the visual style of it, like, how he's trying to, like, merge and, like, find himself grounded, and, like, I don't know, that worked on me really well.
Hulk as a dad, like, he looked like a dad, or like, a cool soccer coach. I was so into that. And yeah, like the sort of gentle laughter of Hulk or Ant-Man. Like, you can't deny Paul Rudd's charm, right?
It didn't work. Like, literally nothing else. I mean, there may have been one scene with Thor that I found amusing, but overall I didn't like it. Like, because I didn't like Ragnarok either. And so it's the Thor humor was a little bit of that kind of humor. Like, this movie did not work on me outside of Hulk, really, which I found very amusing.
I don't know how much time we have left, but I do want to talk, at least, like, mention specifically. There were, 2 major eye-rolling moments in this movie for me. One of them, I know, Anita, you share my feelings about it because I saw you tweet about it, is in the massive battle at the end. There's a moment where I think, I don't remember exactly what leads up to it. Like, Spidey has handed the Infinity Gauntlet off to one of the female heroes, and then there's somebody's like, well, how are you gonna get it to safety? And all these other women swoop in, and it's clearly this, like, female hero shot, and one of them says she has help, and, like, we're supposed to, like, it's so fucking patronizing. Like, it's like, this is not how you do what you need to do. The way you do what you need to do is by actually integrating these characters meaningfully into the story on the same level as all the dudes. Like, that's it. You don't give us these table scraps of a little, very manufactured moment of, here's something that the women can do. Oh, God, I hated that so much.
When I tweeted that, someone asked me if I thought the table scraps were good or bad. And my response was, overall, it's bad. In the scheme of, there's only been one movie with a solo female hero in the MCU. Like, that's embarrassing and sad for them. And they don't get to make up for it by having this one shot. To me, though, it felt a little bit like, I was like, are they foreshadowing? Like, are they foreshadowing in an all-female Avengers movie, which I think is called like A-Force or something like that? I'm not familiar with the comics, so I think that exists. And they might be, I don't know. But the thing that's disappointing is they spent so long in this deeply male-dominated space that they integrated women as sort of secondary characters. And as the years have gone by, they've done a little bit better by them. But still, when we're talking about this big climactic ending, it was all about the men fighting other men. And so this is an opportunity for Marvel to we ended this story and we get to start a new one and we'll see where they go. And it's kind of like what Star Wars did, right? Star Wars came out swinging, being like, we got women and people of color at the forefront of our franchise now, and that's the way it's going to be. And so the MCU better fucking do that as it moves forward.
And speaking of that, boy, did I at the end, I actually was thinking going into this movie, okay, I know that that Chris Evans is leaving as Captain America. Boy, how powerful a symbol might a black Captain America be? Like a black superhero, who is supposed to represent the quintessential ideals of America. And so there's the handing off of the shield at the end. But I thought, but is Anthony Mackie going to get his own Captain America movies? I just don't see that happening. And in fact, I think there's a TV show in the works of, I forget, it's Falcon and, I don't know, it may be Falcon and Hawkeye for all I remember, but it's clearly, it doesn't seem like they're planning to have him fully stepped into the role of Captain America, which is another, strikes me as another missed opportunity.
Yeah. After Black Widow dies in the film, I was like, there's now no women at all in this sausage fest, And it hit me when we got that scene of all the women charging, which absolutely was thrilling. And it was thrilling because I thought, wow, would it have been great to have seen these folks earlier in the fucking film, Because once they start appearing, there's so many. There's Valkyrie, there's Black Widow, there's Okoye, who for real needed to have a larger role in this. There's Pepper, who, whatever, right?
We do need to talk about Nebula, as she's prominent from the beginning in this particular storyline.
Right, but I guess at that point, Nebula, she's not there after a certain period because, her future self and her past self, they're off sort of, figuring out that part of the plot, whatever. There was a point after Black Widow died where it was just dudes in the room, And I was like, there's no need for that. And it speaks to actually part of why I was very excited for this movie to come out. But because of who got Thanos snapped out of the way, my anticipation was not as high as it would have been because I knew that certain characters that I really had grown to love, like Black Panther, for instance, or, they were not going to be part of the film in any meaningful way.
I was really disappointed that Captain Marvel was completely gone. They completely wrote her out, and then she gets to come in for 2 seconds and carry the gauntlet for a minute. Come on.
I get it though, because she's so massively powered that I get. I don't like it, but I do get why she appears at the beginning and then at the end, because given what we see of her, withstanding, a punch from Thanos in the gauntlet, I think it would be hard to, suspend our disbelief over the course of 3 hours that she wouldn't just be able to take him out.
I do like her haircut. I do like her shorter haircut. And I do like that Brie Larson is publicly saying, rightfully, that the MCU needs to move faster on queer representation.
Yeah, for sure. I want to go back to Nebula, though, because I do think she's a really important part of this film. And she's the only female character who is actually an important part of this film. And I think they do her a big disservice. And Black Widow and Nebula's backstories are all about being abused and being powerful through abuse, or being powerful through a history of abuse, which I think is a really troubling trope that we get a lot of the time with female superheroes. And same with Captain Marvel. To some degree, right? Her abuse was literally brainwashing. And the thing about Nebula is that she never actually gets to succeed. like she doesn't get a powerful vindication moment against Thanos, who like harmed her. And not that I want a revenge story by any means, but like she kind of just gets washed out of the story. And it becomes about like Tony saving the day, or like that scene where it's Tony and Captain America and Thor all walking up to take on Thanos. I was like, fucking really? Like it just felt like it felt so old. It felt so old and so dated and so like that it was really troubling. Also, oh wait, important question. Since when can Captain America wield the hammer?
That was alluded to in, I think, Avengers Age of Ultron, where they're all sitting around the penthouse, the Stark penthouse, and they're all trying to lift it and they can't do it. And Captain America like is sort of almost able to budget.
So in the last 5 years, he can like, he's become worthy.
Yeah, that's the point.
Yeah, all right.
You know, like that's the point. Like he was like, you know, pure of spirit, whatever, right? You know, the notion that like this sort like wielding, you know, Mjolnir, if you're able to do it, like Mjolnir knows. I don't know. Listen, y'all know who I am. I'm the cheese puff of this podcast. I fucking loved that scene. I loved Captain America wielding the hammer.
Okay, so there's a movie called Gifted that I've watched on airplanes like 3 times now. And it's with Chris Evans and this girl, this like young girl. And I'd never heard of it other than watching it on airplanes. And it made me just completely fall in love with Chris Evans. I don't know why, but ever since then.
You don't know why. Come on.
I just ever since then, I'm like, I guess Captain Marvel's okay. So I was here for him being like worthy for wielding the hammer, but I realize it's a completely irrational, not logical thing anymore.
You wanted to salute America's ass?
Yeah, like I'm not. What? Shut up. I hate you.
Before we wrap up, I was actually gonna try to bring us back to Thor to talk more deeply about Thor. I mean, because there's a lot going on in addition to him being fatter, and I've heard so many mixed reactions about Thor's arc in general. Some people saying, "Oh, it's great that like he's actually allowed to show real emotion in this film." And you know, when he talks to his mother, he's so like sensitive, and he doesn't have that like gruff facade anymore. When other people saying like it's all played for laughs, like we're supposed to kind of laugh at him that he's in this place of what, you know, some macho dudes might see as like weakness or whatever. And I mean, it's all tied up, you know, in the visual, like the physical changes with him as well. But I don't know. I guess I just was wondering what y'all thought about like all of that.
I think that his character was very much a comic relief character. And part of it started in Ragnarok. And part of it is because Chris Hemsworth is actually like a really versatile actor and can do that and can play that role, I think, more so than some of the other actors. And I think that like, I think that it's a bit of both of those things. Like, I don't think they're necessarily mutually exclusive. I think it does show that, like, he's in grief and he's using alcohol to cope with it. And he doesn't, like, he's let himself go, quote unquote. And I say that with so many caveats, as a way of being like, I failed and I lost everyone I care about. And what's the fucking point? And I think that that's real. The way that it's played for laughs in some ways, I think, is fine. And in other ways, I think is really offensive. Like, him, quote unquote, letting himself go is supposed to be really funny because he's this big, bulky, powerful guy, as if he couldn't be powerful because he gained weight and that his weight is something to make fun of or like gives him less value. I was waiting. I'm really relieved that they didn't have the scene where he just like lost all of it.
Got hot again.
Yeah. Like they stuck to it and he was just as strong and powerful, which I think is a great message in terms of that. But I don't think that was necessarily intentional. I think that I might be reading into that on my own.
Yeah, it was a moment of relief for me when I realized that there was not going to be a kind of training montage, you know, like Rocky style, where Thor loses the weight and gets cut again. Thor's, you know, the way that he has a panic attack, the way that he, you know, eats for comfort and drinks, like, yeah, those things are real. And they could have been played straight and the audience could have been encouraged to empathize with him emotionally rather than just sort of, you know, be put off, or find him a figure of fun. Lines like his mother, leaving him with that zinger and eat a salad, like that shit was unnecessary.
Yeah, that was.
Yes.
But the fact that he does fight at the end, still fat, still with his Big Lebowski hair, I did appreciate it, whether it was deliberate or not.
Yeah, and they
I
didn't shave his
appreciate
beard and make him like proper looking. Like I like that they didn't like quote unquote clean him up.
Yeah, so I appreciated that. There was so much about the way folks have been handling grief in this film that maybe sometimes it was a swing and a miss, but God, I appreciated how they made that swing. The opportunity, like the craving, the opportunity to connect with lost family, the ways that sometimes your grief will make you do and say anything to make the pain stop, the way that it will, stop you in your tracks. I just, there's something there. I appreciated what this movie was trying to do. And, with the caveats, and yeah, it's more than a caveat, because the fat phobia, fuck that. Your attempt to like give me a girl power moment in 1 minute and, make me forget that there's no other chicks in the film. Fuck that, whatever. But at the end of it, I walked out and I was like, yeah, I'm ready to put this away and move on.
I was so divided about the support group scene. On one hand, I hated them like having a gay, like very minor character, and obviously done in a way where they expect like a cookie for that or something, like, oh wow, gay representation in the MCU, but it's not like, it's just a character that's in the one scene. Oh wow. But on the other hand, I was like, man, I would go to a support group if Captain America were the person running it.
And it just felt so true to him. And
Exactly. It did. It felt very true.
Like, of course Cap would run a support group. And yeah, there's that toss off line about how Cap gives the best speeches. And it's like, yeah, he kind of does. Like, you know what? Yeah, I would follow this dude. Right on. Captain America, you've served honorably, sir.
Oh my God. All right. Well, that was our complicated thoughts about the wrap up.
I have so much more to say. We got to talk about it in the bonus.
All right, let's do that. Okay, so it's time for What's Your Freak Out? Ebony, you want to get us started?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I have two things that I've been freaking out about. One, it's the final season of Veep. Do y'all watch Veep?
Nope.
Holy shit, this show is so good. So it's the final season, and Selena Meyer, played by the amazing Julia Louis-Dreyfus, has always been someone who, like, you love to hate. She is not a good person, and yet she's possessed of such an incredible razor sharp wit that at the same time that you hate her, you can't help but laugh with her, because the fact is that as horrible as she is surrounded by, idiots and, craven villains a lot of the time. So it's the final season of Veep. And there are, of course, a lot of, nods to this horrific historical moment we're living with under y'all's president. Such that there's like, a sort of, Russia, China parallelism going on. There's a, Me Too kind of parallel thing going on. But the thing that I am freaking out about is the way that they are allowing, there's 2 episodes left. I think there's 7 episodes total. The way that they appear to be letting Selena Meyer fully inhabit her role as a horrible person. Y'all know that I love an unlikable female character, and so often they get redeemed in some way at the end, and that I don't see how that could happen here. Selena is just making every offensive, horrific, self-serving decision that she can make, and has invented 20 more. And I love that. She is a horrible person. I would be horrified if I worked near her or around her. I'm glad there's no one in my life like her. But I love that they have not taken the easy way out by suggesting that she is somehow, there's some softer side to her, that there's some sort of like intrinsic, imminent kind of, feminine righteousness or goodness. She's just a horrible person, So I'm freaking out about Veep. I'm going to save the other freak out I was going to have, which is Gentleman Jack, because I only watched one episode. So I'm going to save it for when I've watched more.
All right. Carolyn, what are you freaking out about this week?
So on last week's bonus, which supporters of this podcast may have listened to, and if you haven't, become a supporter and listen to it.
What Carolyn is trying to say is you can become one at patreon.com/femfreak.
That's right. That's what I meant to say. The first episode of the new Twilight Zone was called The Comedian. And on last week's bonus, Zara and I had what I thought was a really great conversation about that episode. She offered so much insight into that episode for me. I've since watched two more episodes of the new Twilight Zone. One is called A Traveler, and it features Steven Yeun in a major role. Steven Yeun is an actor who I've gotten really excited about recently, particularly after seeing him in Burning, which was a film I freaked out about on an earlier episode. And the other one that I watched is called The Wonderkind, and it stars John Cho. A Traveler, as an episode, I didn't ultimately find it. Started off so great, and then I ultimately didn't find it as satisfying as I had hoped to, but I still think it was absolutely worth watching just because Steven Yeun is so kind of charismatic and enigmatic in the episode. He's very good at playing enigmatic characters, and he does that spectacularly here. So I recommend watching it just for the pleasure of seeing Steven Yeun's performance. The other episode, The Wonderkind, stars John Cho as a campaign manager, political campaign manager, who undertakes the task, basically runs the campaign for this kid. I forget if he's either 8 or 11. He's, a young kid who's like running for president, and John Cho takes him under his wing and tries to make him president. And this episode I found really effective and devastating. I don't want to go into too much detail because it'll spoil things, but it definitely has very, very clear parallels to living under Trump and to the very notion of when the point in time when the very notion of what's true or what's real starts to bend or break because someone in power says it's one thing when everyone knows it's actually something else. And John Cho, as an actor, just in everything I see him in, he just brings such a sincerity to his roles. And this episode and this performance definitely really benefits from that. So Steven Yeun, John Cho, two actors I really love in two separate episodes of the new Twilight Zone. Check it out.
Sweet. My freak out is I spent the weekend at a festival in Las Vegas called the Believer Fest, run by Believer Magazine, which is a literary magazine. And the reason I want to mention it is I think that Vegas is such an interesting place because we immediately think of it as a place where you go party, right? You debauchery and parties, and the whole slogan of what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. It's glitzy and glamorous and gritty, and everyone has a conception of Vegas, which I did too until I started going there a lot more regularly for a variety of reasons. And one thing that I think the Believer Fest does is really help us see how vibrant how vibrant the arts community is in Vegas outside of the Strip and outside of our conceptions of what that city is. And I think there's a lot of value to being able to find the communities that live in these spaces that we have these concepts of what all these cities are, but that it's not always accurate. And the people that live in them build these communities and these arts communities in these various different spaces and restaurants and all of these sorts of pieces of culture that often get erased or written out of the narrative. And so I guess like next time you go to Vegas, I encourage you to see more of the city than just what, unless you're just going to there to party.
The strip, yeah.
But but that there's more
But it's
to
the same thing that happens with LA, right?
Yep.
Like there's this very outsider's view of LA that it's a very plastic city, that the entertainment industry is the end all be all, that it's very shallow, it's very new, it's very vain. And while that may be accurate to a small degree, there's so much happening in LA that has nothing at all to do with film and TV.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like there's great food here. There's great public art here. There's great organizing here. There's so much that has nothing to do with Beverly Hills or, the film studios or whatever. And yet, most people feel comfortable, with this idea of LA as Hollywood.
Yeah, totally. And I guess I want to extrapolate all of this out to be like, I think a lot of the places that you have these stereotypes and conceptions of actually probably have something a little deeper under the surface if you are willing to look for it and find it. So that's my
Except for
freak out.
Boston. Boston just as racist as you think.
Yeah, Boston is definitely as racist as you think it is. You know what? Nope, I'm going to correct that. Boston is more racist than you think it is.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. This week we have a guest freak out by listener Tabby.
Longtime listener Tabby here. Thank you so much for all your work over the years. It has really improved my relationship with the media I consume. For my freak out, I want to highlight a book series in the romance genre, which I find to be a genre often dismissed because its readers are primarily female. So let me tell you about Reluctant Royals by Alyssa Cole. There are 3 books out at the moment with more on the way, all featuring heroines of color from a variety of backgrounds, including women working in STEM, women with mental and physical disabilities, as well as openly queer characters. Cole creates a chemistry between her characters that is, of course, sizzling hot, laugh out loud funny, while also being deeply moving. She also makes time in her narratives for subjects like sexual consent, the American foster care system, and the horrors of immigration and deportation in the States. Again, that was Reluctant Royals by Alyssa Cole. Thank you, and keep doing the good work.
Thank you so much for that freak out. And we agree. We've talked about how romance is a genre that often gets looked past because it's stereotypically targeting women, but that doesn't mean there isn't a whole lot of value to it. So thank you for sharing that with us. If you want to submit your own freak out, please do that by heading over to feministfrequency.com/freakout. That's FREQOUT. All right, y'all, that's our show. You can catch us back here every single Wednesday. Stay tuned for the Freakin' After Party, which is only available to backers of this podcast, which you can be. Head over to patreon.com/femfreak. If you're enjoying the show, please rate and review us on iTunes. And when you are having your deep dive conversation into Avengers Endgame, tell your friends that they should listen to our conversation about it, too. That was a sad one this week. I'm sorry. Tell your friends is what I'm trying to say. All right. You can check out all our work and our other podcasts at feministfrequency.com, and be sure to follow us on Twitter at FemFreak to stay up to date on all the news. You can find me at Anita Sarkeesian.
I'm at Carolyn Michelle.
I am at I Went for the Head.
I went for the head. Oh, Thor. Spoilers. All right. Our producer is Phil Circus, who also composed our theme music, technical support by Sarah Norales, production assistance by Taylor Simmons, and art by Jamie Barron. We'll see y'all next week.
Bye.
Later.